Okay. Let's see, it's January 8th, 2024. This is the first meeting of the year for the Bicycle Advisory Committee for Arlington County. My name is Alan Gonzalez. I'm a transportation planner with DES, and I'll let Cynthia Palmer take control.
Hi, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. I know it's not our usual first Monday, but glad to see those of us who could make it. And we will start by introducing ourselves, and our introductory question relates to the fact that we will be looking for more members. And so the question came up: how did you become involved in the BAC or in road safety more generally? Was there a particular incident, an intersection, a conversation, an article, or something else that triggered your interest, engagement, and activism in biking safety issues? And I will start. I'm Cynthia Palmer, and we can thank the intersection at Lynn and Lee, now called Langston Boulevard. We can thank that IOD, the intersection of death, for my engagement in road safety. I got a new job in early 2012 that put me through that intersection twice daily, and I had repeated near-death experiences, one in particular that left me really, really shaken. And I thought, I must go tell somebody. So I found the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and I blurted out that they should know about this terrible intersection. And they almost laughed and said, well, actually, we've been working on that one for years or decades. But welcome to the team. So I've been going pretty much every month since then. So thanks to the intersection of death for bringing me into road safety. And I'm looking who's on the list. We can go down the list. I see Dana's name. I don't know if he's actually able to introduce himself, because I think he is multitasking with 2 meetings at once. But Dana, if you're here, you could say hello. Okay, we can come back to Dana. I know he has 2 meetings at once. David and Sal.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. I was, I guess I got interested. I had been a bike.
I think you're frozen. I think David is frozen. All right. Should we? Yeah, let's come back.
Try 3 for 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Now we hear you.
Okay. So then I retired and started biking around Arlington for transportation pretty much on a daily basis. And just like you, Cynthia, although I didn't have a near-death experience, I had many safety concerns and wanted to see more protected bike lanes, et cetera, et cetera. And I just kind of looked up who's the bicycle advocacy people in Arlington. And so here I am.
Excellent. Thank you. Ellen.
Yeah, hey, good evening, everyone. This is Alan Gonzalez. For me, I got into bicycle safety probably after high school. Like, I grew up in suburban Orlando. I'm used to driving around most of the time, either with my parents or by myself in my own car. But when I went to college, I went to school in Tallahassee, Florida, which is a pretty small, like, college town, even though it's a state capital. And it was pretty easy to get around by foot or taking the bus or what have you. But even taking the bike, despite how hilly it is up there compared, I mean, hilly for Florida, despite how hilly it was still pretty easy to bike around. So when I moved back to Orlando and then to South Florida after that, I was kind of taken aback by how autocentric things were. And it's autocentric not because of people not wanting to bike, but because of it being unsafe with these roads that are 40 miles per hour plus going through people's neighborhoods and things that are so spread out. It's not conducive to biking whatsoever. So I made it a point to do the best I can to improve safety, which led me to the career that I have now.
Interesting. Fantastic. Thank you. Eric Goodman.
Can you hear me okay?
You're
Good,
good.
good, good. All right. Well, I guess what you call Lee and Lynn, or Langston and Lynn, I've always called it Roslyn Circle, but I think we're talking about the same place. And I think that brought me to the committee about 2 decades before you. And I started working with Rich Viola on that. I think there have been some improvements there, but there's certainly more that needs to be improved. I think that at one point, the no right turn was a little bit longer and actually made it easier to cross. Nowadays, you got to sprint to get across there. You could make it by bicycle, but by walking, you really got to sprint to get far enough in that you don't get hit by turning cars because they're like immediate. So that's at least one issue there. And then at the far end of Roslyn Circle, they put I guess, the beg buttons on the wrong side. So people who are bicycling have to usually make a circle, hit the button and then circle back around. So I hope at some point that we can correct some of those issues because those still remain to be problems. So. And then also just to note, I'm also currently the acting chair of the pedestrian committee and the liaison to this committee. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe we should not improve that intersection because we're doing well in creating new bike safety activists at Lynn and Lee. Langston. Mike Hanna.
Hey, so yeah, I got involved because I was the official tree hugger when I came on. I was the E2C2 rep. So every time you guys talked about bike infrastructure, I talked about how many trees you were going to take down to put in a new bike trail. But you convinced me, and I'm a bike commuter now, so in the thick of it, much more than I was back then. So got really engaged in bike safety and this committee's real passion for every intersection in the county. I've never known a group of people who could, at the drop of a hat, talk about any random intersection and have an opinion about every curb cut on that intersection. Best informed people I know. So it's all a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Leslie.
Hi, I'm afraid I have nothing dramatic to add. I've just been involved with bicycle education and teaching people how to ride and teaching mechanics for years. And when I moved to DC, I said, okay, what's going on here? And I must have run into somebody who told me about this committee. So here I am.
Wonderful. And you have no shortage of dramatic stories, Leslie, just saying.
Yes,
They may not have brought you to BAC, but you've got them.
yes, in fact, I do.
Yeah. Andrew Martin.
Hey, so I've been kind of a cyclist for a long time. When I first moved to Arlington, used it quite a bit to get around as I was car free for a bit. And then a couple of months ago, I think saw maybe an Arl Now article saying that this committee needed members and wanting to be more civically engaged. submitted an application.
Fantastic. Well, we are so pleased to have you. Thank you for coming again. And now we have Mary.
Let me turn my camera on here. So I'm Mary Delau, and I'm the program director for Bike Arlington and Walk Arlington, and I live in Bluemont. And when I came into my role, I came into the walk program, but the reality is my bike was always my first love. And I've ridden a bike since high school. Like, I rode it all around. I was the only person who rode for exercise in my small town in Pennsylvania. And I rode my bike in college to get to my jobs. So it's just been a lifelong, both for exercise and for commuting and enjoyment. And I've learned a lot more about safety, obviously, in this role, bike and walk. But I haven't been quite as moved by the topic as I have been this year, as my oldest son has started biking to school by himself. And now I'm hyper aware. Like, if it's just me, I know what to do and I'll be fine. But once you put your kid out there alone and you're trusting the infrastructure and drivers and all that, it's a whole other ball game. So that especially makes me really care about these issues right now. And I think you all are wonderful and do such great work and advocate so well. So I'm really happy to be able to be part of this.
Wonderful. Totally relate to the child safety issues out there. Oh, yeah. Noreen.
Hey, everybody. Well, will confess that I didn't know about your existence. I was originally, well, I still am on the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission, and they asked if I would attend your meetings and sort of liaise with you. And so I did. And ever since I started, though, it's been very enlightening to learn how many areas of the county's government, the pedestrian and bicycle issues touch on. And it's, every meeting just brings up a lot of interesting topics. So been enjoying it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming again and again and again, Noreen. We appreciate having you. And now we have Randy.
Well, ancient history. I was a member of WABA's safety committee back in the 70s because I was a commuter and I could see that I was going to run across the same problems every day going back and forth, and they were not going to change unless I did something to try to provoke that change. And then sometime in the early 80s, Hank Hume, who was the head of the Public Works, as they called it at that time, formed the Bicycle Advisory Committee. And since I had been active in advocating in Arlington with a group led by a guy named Charlie Martin, we all became members of the original Bicycle Advisory Committee. So, and I was there the night that Cynthia came and said, "There's this terrible intersection and I almost got killed." And we all said, "Uh-huh."
Exactly.
Guess what? It's still a terrible intersection, and you could still get killed there.
Yes.
So, anyway, that's my story.
Great story. Oh my. I didn't know that we started in the 80s. So yeah, you beat me to it. All right. Aaron.
Hey guys, I haven't been around quite as long as Randy. I started bike commuting about 10 years ago, and about 5 years ago, Elizabeth Denton, who is with the Arlington Transportation Partners, was working with a group of us teachers up at Yorktown to help build our multimodal transportation, such and such. And she asked me if I'd consider being on the committee, and I said, okie dokie. So here I am. And I'm still commuting in shorts, Cynthia, just in case you wanted to know.
I'm still commuting in 3 pairs of pants.
When it gets cold, I might switch, but we're good for
When
now.
it gets cold.
Yeah.
All right. I think of you every time I see the guys in shorts going by me. Like,
Might have been me.
exactly. All right. Let's see who's next. Steve-O.
Yeah, hi, Steve Offit. I live in the, excuse me, in the courthouse area. I couldn't, when you first asked the question, I was like, I have no recollection whatsoever. I couldn't remember, but now I've had enough time, as everyone else has been talking, to have some recollection. I've been bike commuting since the 90s in Arlington. I moved here in the 90s, and then I also worked on transportation-related issues at EPA on a national level, including things like trying to, get cycling to be more widespread among employers, providing commuter benefits and so on. And during that process, I met Chris Hamilton, who many of you remember worked in the county, and then I actually was for a short time worked as the contractor to the county on some of their climate-related transportation stuff. And through that whole process, I learned about the committee and went ahead and got on it. I also was there the day that Cynthia showed up, and I remember that pretty clearly as well.
The day I made a fool of myself. Let's see. It looks like Jillian has joined us.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Hey. Sorry, my phone. Jillian Burgess, I live in Cherrydale, and I have been on the committee. I actually don't remember when I first joined the BAC specifically, but I started biking for transportation actually back in the early 2000s in DC, when it was like me and the bike messengers, and we were maybe not the most responsible cyclists in the world. But then after, and then I moved away, other things happened, and I came back and was a more responsible adult and was biking, and realized that there are lots of things that could be improved if we just made more room for people biking, and it would improve things for people walking and people driving. Like, it was just like you fix the middle, and the other ends also get fixed. And so I got involved in advocacy, and here I am today. And I believe I was actually chairing the meeting when Cynthia came and said, "There's this intersection."
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. And I tried to, okay. So let's give Dana another chance to say hello, if Dana is in this meeting now.
I'm in kind of both meetings.
Yeah, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, Dana Bress, I got involved about 2009 or 2010 when I started cycling, and it just kind of seemed like the thing to do. No traumatic events.
Good. All right, and I see Collier has joined us as well.
Yeah, hi. I'm trying to, it's sort of been over time, my degree of involvement. I think I really started, I guess, getting involved when Capital Bike Share launched back 2010, 2009, 2010, that time frame. And I started biking, and then I got, I guess, radicalized when I got hit by a driver, and then a few weeks later I had a crash due to some poor infrastructure. So that's when I got much more involved, when it became a bit more personal. So but as I said, I can't sort of remember the timeline. It's been a while now.
Okay, well, I am glad that you lived to tell the tales, but I'm sorry to hear that that was your introduction to biking. Who else is here? Did I miss anybody in the introductions? Looks like.
I came on late. I came on
Hey,
late.
hey,
Hi.
Megan.
Hi. Okay, so I think I was 2009, 2010. Randy adopted me quite early on and sat next to me and told me what all the definitions were. And I joined because my ex was going to the meetings and I was the only female that was there. And he's like, we really need to have a female perspective. And then I got sucked into the cult and here I've been here ever since. So, and thanks, Randy.
Fantastic. And your ex no longer comes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he doesn't. But he still stays involved on the listserv. So, yeah. And I somehow ended up vice chairing with Jillian once Jillian came on board. So, you know, it's been a long ride and he was chair for a while. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. All right. I think we got everyone. So why don't we move right along? And first up, we have Mary to talk briefly about the Bike Arlington Comfort Map updates.
Yes. So I believe that Cynthia had sent an email to everyone about this. So I wanted to update you on it, that we're updating the bicycle comfort level map for 2024. And the BAC has already provided some excellent feedback on how we can improve it. And I agree with much of what was said. So thank you everybody who weighed in. And so right now I'm in the process of compiling all your comments, and I have a meeting with TE&O next week to talk about the map with them and get some of their input. And they have some good data. And this came about because I just brought it up in a meeting, in a roundtable, and they were saying that, like, well, now we have data that we didn't have when this map was first created that can have all sorts of objective factors about these roads, like crash statistics. And there were a lot of different items like lane width, vehicle speeds. And so they were saying, can we somehow talk about if we can use these to help develop this map and develop the routes more objectively, and then maybe the BAC can vet that. So I thought that was a fine idea. So that's what this meeting is about next week, to just see how we could do all of that. And it might be, I thought this was going to be like a really simple process, and this could be much more involved than I thought. And I think that's fine. So I will keep you all posted. And if anybody has any input, we're just getting started, so just email me. It's mary.dalao, DALLAO, @walkarlington.com. And then I'll just keep you apprised. And also, Cynthia and Dana had sent me a lot of routes that they take that they feel are lower stress that I wasn't aware of, like just little side streets and back roads. So if any of you have looked at the comfort map and see anything you typically do that's not reflected there, I'd love to know that too, because that will make this a better map. We can add more detail. So that's pretty much my update on that, but thanks for the feedback you've given so far.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have questions for Mary? Eric.
Yeah, Mary, I just wanted to ask, I remember, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, there was like a research group that had done this in multiple cities and had kind of looked at things and kind of created a grid and showed where there were missing links and other things like that. And I think may have helped sort of create at least one version of the comfort map. I don't know if they're still engaged in any way with us or through the county anymore, but that was helpful at the time.
I don't think so. I can ask Henry about that more. He told me a little bit about, I guess that was 2015, I think was the first one. Is that, and it was something like 1,000 people provided input. Was that the same process, or was that
There was a
So that-
data-driven thing that there was, I can't remember, a researcher that had written a book that was sort of well-known and had done things in like multiple cities throughout the world, and
Oh,
I think had some researchers working with us on that.
uh-huh.
But I never knew kind of where it went from there. So maybe Henry would be a good person to double back with.
Yes, that's good to know because it sounds like that might be different from the more recent information he gave me. Just to know what's out there. Excellent. Thank you.
Well, it sounds like it will be a very involved process, but exciting to
Sure.
pursue it.
Yeah, we want to make it good.
So, and I hope everyone heard that if you have a special route that you take because you feel it's more safe, more comfortable, whatever, good to let Mary know. And I'm going to take another look at the map myself and suggest perhaps some of my routes, because I have some really good ones, thanks to many of you who have helped guide me over the years. Any more questions? We good? All right. Thank you so much. I asked Mary to join us only this morning, and she was a real sport and said yes. So
Sure, I'm glad to do it.
grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So next we have BAC suggestions for the capital improvement plan. I hope that people saw the attachment to the emails in the last few days. We put together some top priority items. It's not a comprehensive list, that's not our job, but we are trying to guide the county manager in terms of some projects and programs we think deserve special attention and perhaps capital improvement plan funding. So maybe we can discuss the recommendations a little bit, if folks would like. Our very top recommendation, and this was a consensus between the PAC and the BAC, the pedestrians and the bicyclists, we all agree that crossing Shirlington Road is terrifying, and we would like to see short and medium term fixes for that crossing. We're not telling the county what they have to do, but we're just like, we need something safe to stop the cars when we get across. So that is our top priority item. And then we also have some other new recommendations and some programs. And then secondly, some programs that already exist, but we would like to increase funding for, or just show our support. So assuming that everybody has read the document or at least glanced at it, would anyone like to raise particular points, discuss things? We've talked about it with a number of active BAC participants from various parts of our committees. So any thoughts before we take a vote? Okay, and in terms of voting, as we know, the BAC member list is outdated. People who have not joined us for some years, are on the committee and others who absolutely deserve to be part of this committee because they've been coming every month and actively participating. I believe that those people are not yet officially on the committee, but let's do our best to make a vote. I can move that. Wait, I see a hand. Jillian.
Yeah, sorry. There are a couple things on here that are not CIP issues. And so in the also recommended, the side underride guards would not be a CIP issue.
Now, are we sure? Because talking to Chris Slatt, he said keep it on. That it's and I tried to look it up, and I got mixed. I couldn't find. I mean, in some sources it said that would be capital, but whether it's capital for this Arlington CIP, I don't know.
No, parts of cars are not capital in the Arlington CIP. I chair the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission. Like, it's not. That's not what we put in the capital plan.
And where would it go if it doesn't go in the CIP?
In the operating budget. So the CIP, just so everyone understands, the CIP is just a planning document. It's not a binding document.
Yeah.
The binding document every year is the operating budget. The operating budget tells the county how to spend its own money. Spend money raised through taxes and fees. There's also money raised through grants that is restricted to certain uses. So like money coming from the state or from the federal government that has to be used in a certain way. Part of the reason we do these two things separately, we do a CIP, is so that we can start planning. So like, let's say the county agrees we should build an underpass for Shirlington Boulevard, for Shirlington Road. They might look for sources of grant funding and sources of local funding. And there are multiple priorities that are competing for the capital funding and multiple sources for capital funding. And it's really complicated. So it's easier to plan it out, just capital funding, separately from the operating budget. The other thing that happens is that we can borrow for capital expenses and we cannot borrow for operating expenses. We can put whatever we want in our capital plan in the CIP, but we can only borrow for things that meet the definition of capital expense. So we generally only put things that meet that definition in the CIP. So a part of a car would not be a capital expense. And we couldn't borrow to finance that.
Would it make sense to leave it in, but include a notation that we understand that Arlington may not put it in this category? Arlington staff kept it in, and they put it in under new that they suggested we include it under new proposals. So maybe if we simply acknowledge in our document that this may not be the right place to, I mean, this is just to Mark Schwartz. This is not like.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I definitely wouldn't use like our first chit on it, because it definitely, like, if I'm a budget person reading this, I read this and I'm like, oh, they don't even know what they're talking about. They're talking about a vehicle part on a CIP, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, capital projects are usually big projects. To that end, the solar panels, I think, actually are CIP, but
solar panels actually was added by staff.
Okay, but I wouldn't put it third. Like, you know, I would put like these things that are lower dollar, I would put them lower. But like the intersection of doom, I would think is our our next priority after Shirlington Road. Wayfinding also not a capital expense.
Yeah, and again, that was in the Arlington staff list. But why don't we lower the solar panels and the wayfinding and raise the intersection of doom and add a notation about the side underride guards that there may be a better source of funds and that they may not fit in the CIP.
That works. And then the last thing, adding bikes and e-bikes to the county fleet, that's already county employees can already get capital bike share memberships. And there was a new program included in the operating budget last year to add e-bikes to the county fleet. So that's not a new program.
So should we move it? Or should we remove it? Or should we leave it in because we support it?
I mean, it shouldn't be, if anything, it should be moved to 2.
Okay.
But I actually think this is very interesting because I think Shirlington Road and maybe the intersection of Doom are already in the CIP.
I mean, the document doesn't have to be sort of so exacting in my mind. This is just telling Mr. Schwartz where our hearts are, what we want to push for, what we believe in. And if we get a few details wrong of whether something is already in an old version, well, so be it. Like, to me, that doesn't matter. It's still important to show that we support certain things, right?
Well, yeah, but you're also making life harder for staff. You're like asking them for something, but then also saying, like, do the homework.
Though staff vetted our version. Were you here last month? Because staff were really helpful. They went through it. They reorganized it. They made their additions and deletions. And we then remolded it slightly. But staff have definitely had a turn with this.
Did it go up to like Mike Moon?
I have no idea. I don't know who on staff saw it. Steve, did you want to jump in here, or Elwin?
It's so weird.
Yeah, just really quick from staff's point of view, it was just me and Dave who worked on this together following last month's joint meeting. So this didn't go that far.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Mike and his team are the ones who know like what goes in the CIP, what doesn't go in the CIP.
All right, so I mean, the CIP has, well, when you mentioned the Shirlington Road crossing that it's already in there, is the actual plan include the long-term, long-term effort to actually completely fix it, or is it just a study? Because I think we're suggesting that, and we even talked about this in a previous meeting, that there are some things they could literally do tomorrow that would improve it at least some, and that was a couple months ago, and so that particular tomorrow that's already gone by didn't obviously get it done. But and then there are those things that would require more real budgeting, capital budgeting, and so on and so forth. But I don't know if, I mean, Jillian, you said that it's in the plan. Do you know if it's at what level is it in the plan? Like, is it just a study or is it something else?
I think it's number. Okay, I'm looking at the plan now. I guess it's not in the plan. At least it's not called
On
Road.
Shirlington Road, we are specifically looking for short and medium term fixes. They won't solve the problem in a big way forever, but I mean, ultimately we need an underpass or an overpass or a stop that actually makes the cars stop for humans. We need a dedicated crossing. There's too many children going through there to that beautiful new playground, Jenny Dean Park. In my mind, it was the cart before the horse. We should not have built that playground without fixing this extremely dangerous crossing right next to it. And it's on the premier bicycle route of the county that we advertise everywhere as if it's family friendly. It's not if it includes Shirlington Road, in my opinion. So are we in a position where, with some tweaks, lowering the solar panels, raising the intersection of death, lowering the wayfinding, making a notation about the side underride guards and whether the appropriateness of including them in the CIP versus other funding sources. With those 4 amendments, are we in a position to vote on this document?
Yeah, I mean, so for example, we recommend a policy that all future signal installations and upgrades should include automatic detection of people walking and biking. They do. That is the county policy. I mean, not walking. Sorry, not walking. That is true. Not walking. But all new signals get a camera, and cameras detect people biking in the roadway.
So we can put that in the, why don't we move that to the bucket of items that already exist that deserve more support?
No,
I mean,
the old cameras don't detect anybody. Every light that I arrived at today did not detect me. So I think we should leave it in just the way it is.
I mean, we've had the signal people come to the BAC and say that every new traffic light gets a camera and cameras detect bikes. I have to admit, I was out and about today and it seemed like all the lights were screwed up, not just for people biking. All the lights seem screwed up today. I don't know why. But aside from today, I get recognized all the time by those thin white, those column shaped white cameras. And that's what they told us. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah,
you can leave all of this.
right.
I just don't think it makes us look like we did our homework.
They do recognize bikes. They do not recognize people. I do not travel. I don't leave Arlington. I wish I did, but I watch a ton of road safety videos from Europe. And oh my gosh, are they more advanced than we are? And if a pedestrian or a bike is still in the middle of an intersection, their cameras, their European technology actually holds the lights and actually waits. And I mean, in some countries, until people get across the street.
I'm with you, but we can't buy that technology because we have to buy the technology that fulfills our procurement standards. And so, I mean, I would love it. I agree. We should have cameras that detect people walking. It's my understanding those aren't for sale.
Yeah, I have no idea what they can buy here or what they can't, but it seems so sorry when, I mean, so pathetic crossing some of our streets. but anyways, I'm just wondering if we can vote on something, because some of us spent a chunk of the holiday break working on this, and the prior month as well, and we've circulated multiple versions, and we're getting sort of sick of working on it, and we'd love to finish. So
I'll just abstain then.
no. I mean, whatever. Like let's make some tweaks. If if you think that the bike signals, the detection of bikes is standard practice, and there's nothing we can do for the pedestrians. I'm not sure if Eric Goodman wants to weigh in on that. I, but if there's some easy way to make this more accurate, then happy to do so. And Eric's hand went up, so let's hear it.
Yeah, I think we should still keep it in, even if the technology may not be there. Technology keeps improving, and adoption keeps improving. I think this is a wish list. I think this is something that should stay on here. And as technology improves, hopefully they can purchase it.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm wondering, should we just make it a little more clear by putting we support the county's continued efforts to install intersections that identify bikes, and hope that the county continues to look for better technology that could eventually do pedestrians as well. Something that acknowledges the fact, kind of Jillian's point, if they've already got a program and it looks like we're calling for a program we've already got, they're going to kind of throw it aside. But if we make it clear that, yes, we acknowledge you've been doing this, and kudos for that, but they don't always work very well, and we want something better, I think that would address that. And my other thought is, this is less this is kind of more of an advocacy than a policy document, if you know what I mean, in that we're not necessarily identifying clear projects that are ready to go on the CIP. We're basically saying, here, we're supporting all these things, staff, figure out how you can get them funded. And if it's CIP appropriate, that's great. If it's operating budget appropriate, then maybe that gives somebody some ammunition to get it in the operating funds.
That all makes sense to me. I see Aaron's hand.
Sorry, is this a 5-year plan we're looking at? CIP? Not
10-year plan.
10-year. All right. So
10 years, but it's really only the first 2 years that matter. It's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah. So I'd say I'd agree with Mike. We kind of want to shuffle some of these things where the county is spending money, should continue spending money, and we want them to increase their commitment by spending more money on all of these safety things that are the lights, the underguard protection, all of these things that maybe don't fit into one bucket, but all belong in the budget in one way or another. So I think if we clump them all together, then it's clear we understand what the CIP is about, but we want them to understand our priorities. And then we focus the very clear priorities on things like things stronger than bollards and bridges and underpasses where we need them, and the big ticket items that are, maybe even the country club access road, things like that.
That all makes sense to me. If anybody wants to send me some edits, I would be happy to put them in. Otherwise, I've been trying to scribble down the notes as best I can. Yeah.
So I have one new thing. So one thing that the FAC has been focused on, and the county board actually included in their guidance to the county manager on preparing the operating budget, but it's going to hopefully be the same for the CIP, is tying things in the budget to performance measures and targets in master planning documents. And importantly for us, Section 6 of the bicycle element of the master transportation plan has an entire section with quantifiable progress targets for the goals of the plan. And the county has never like tied their funding to that. So I put this in the chat, but I propose that you put something at the top that just says fund it. I mean, we said these were goals and we haven't put any money towards that in any sort of consistent way or in any explicit, transparent way.
Right. You know, I raised this last month too. I would like, and this is separate from this letter, but I would like staff to come back and tell us how they are using the bike element in any of the decision making. I kind of asked it last week and month, and no one seemed to have an answer. But I'm presuming that any capital planning, any operations budget planning, somebody does the due diligence of going back through the plans and seeing how they can align. And, you know, it doesn't always work out, but at least they've gone through the exercise of acknowledging that's what we said we were going to do. So anyway, that's just a note for staff. If we can get that kind of report back, maybe at the next meeting, because I would like to hear that. Whomever.
Yeah, and specifically when it comes to the budget, like number 9 in this document is reconstruct or repave at least 4% of the multi-use trail miles each year. Does anybody have any idea what they've done in the last couple of years? My guess is no, but that's a very, that should be a concrete budget item. Same with number 10. Having covered bicycle parking at transit stations and schools by 2030. I haven't seen I don't believe any progress on that since this was adopted.
So does Arlington have a staff person who is responsible for implementation of the bike element and the master transportation plan? Is there someone whom we could invite to join us and have such a discussion?
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are aware that the MTP is in the process of being updated. It'll probably be going for the next 2 or 3 years, the next update. And all the elements will be folded into one master document instead of having it scattered across different elements. So I could probably invite the project manager to that. Her name is Kristen Calkins. She's in charge of that update, and she could probably give an update about where we are in terms of progress and in terms of implementation. If that's helpful.
Yes,
Yeah,
so
it would also be helpful if we could fill in this chart. There's a table on page 29 of the MTP, 29 and 30. If we could just have where we are now, it has the baseline numbers, it has the target by certain years, and then it has the baseline from 2018-19, but it doesn't, I think we've had one update since this started.
Steve, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I really do want to second Mike's comments that, I mean, there was so much work was put into the bike element, and truthfully, that should just be the guiding document. And even the fact that we have this, you know, letter that we should focus on this and that, we already did that. We already said, here's the entire bike element for everything that needs to get done. What's going, and what Jillian's pointing out is the same thing. It's like, well, what is going on, and who's taking charge, and how is it, you know, getting, you know, progress being made on it? None of that seems to ever happen. And I feel like maybe one job of this committee is to like just emphasize that every single month, like to you, Elwin, and you pass that through. Like, what's going on right now that has bike element aspects to it, and are those being incorporated? I mean, it was adopted by the county board. It's supposed to be being done. We shouldn't have to come back around and say, hello, you know, every single time there's anything that happens. And great that they're redoing the master transportation plan, but the truth is that's just going to be an excuse to not do anything for 2 more years. And that's unacceptable. We already have the element, just do it. And I mean, that would be, in my opinion, that should be like maybe the first thing in this letter is we have an element in the master transportation plan, read it, fund all that shit and do it.
So our prior version of this letter did include the bike element, and I guess when staff reviewed it, if I remember correctly, it didn't, that part didn't stay in, but maybe we can figure out some way to add
Well,
that back in.
yeah, my memory was Dave or whoever didn't like it because it was one of 30 things. You know, fix this intersection, do this thing. Oh, implement the bike element.
Right.
To Jillian's point, I think it should be at the top. You know, below we provide some specifics, but basically implement the bike element.
Okay.
That should be your guide, and overriding of everything else.
I mean, one way you could organize it is to say, implement the bike element. Among specific locational projects, prioritize Shirlington Road, the intersection of Doom, Arlington Boulevard Trail, you know, the ones that you have in the letter already.
Yeah. Okay,
And then,
well, why don't...
And then, you know, for projects that are not specific to a location, these are ones we would prioritize. And then again, you have your list already. And most of these things are already in the bike element, probably with the exception of side underride guards. But there may be language about making making the county's vehicles safer. I'm not sure there is, but.
So that we don't fall too far behind, do people feel that we are ready for a vote on this? I'm just thinking so that we don't delay it another month. If we were to make those changes, make a notation about side underride guards and the funding sources, lower solar panels, lower the wayfinding, raise the intersection of death, and put a notation about the bike element at the top. Would that make sense then to vote on this with those, knowing that those changes will be made? And I see Eric now has his hand up.
Yeah, I think that the bike element is certainly called out at the top of the existing programs. So your element number 2, I mean, talks. I think the first one talks about policy 12, and the second, and I guess maybe it's the other one was increased funding for I guess the Arlington Boulevard Trail, and then you also have bike element policy 1. I would say that we should roll it into those 3 top things there. We could certainly emphasize the bike element items there at the top of existing, because this is an existing effort that we need to get implemented.
So Eric, I had put language in the chat. This isn't that. These are what's in there already are specific projects, and then it cites to where in the element that project is supported. What I'm saying is The element has quantitative targets, and we should be funding so that we meet the quantitative targets.
Well, again, you're looking at this as the next 2 years out of a 10-year program. If we emphasize certain things that we want to push, even out of that, I think that that's fine to do this here. I don't think we throw everything out there, all at once, then it doesn't give them things to focus on. So I think that we could beef up the top recommendations under the existing programs and projects.
But that would not, you could do that. You could absolutely do that. But that's not saying, that is saying something different.
I think we
should
add it to the cover note. I mean, to the note at the very top.
Yeah.
Where we say that Shirlington Road is our top priority. Even before that, we should say implement the bike element.
Yeah,
fund the bike element to meet the targets that the county board told you to meet.
Yeah, I think the subtle message is don't come. I mean, we're glad to weigh in and give you some priorities, but you've already been given the job to implement the bike element. So go ahead and show us how you're doing that, and then within that, if you want us to help you prioritize, we're glad to do it. But it's kind of not our job to read the bike element back to the county at this point after they've adopted it.
And by tying it back to the quantitative targets, we are echoing what the board just said to the manager. Like we're fitting into a larger scale push to tie what the county is doing back to these master planning documents that we spend so much time on.
All right, so can we vote on this now, or do people need to read the final version?
I think I'm okay voting on it. With, you can make a motion that kind of incorporates that, but I don't know how others feel.
How do others feel?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it might be worth shooting it around one more time with these, because then the changes are kind of big enough that we might want to do another quick look.
Do you want to take charge, Steve?
You want to send me your notes? Want to send me your notes? I didn't actually write all this down, but I can do the.
You can. I mean, voting is tricky. I will just say these days. So voting by email is no fun. Eric, your hand is back up. Jillian, your hand is up too. I don't know.
So I just want to say I'm going to bring this to the pedestrian committee as well. So I think we don't want to get too far off the track on what we started here. Otherwise, it could go on for months. So I think we want to. I think we want to make some tweaks. Certainly see what the pedestrian folks say, and then maybe pull those last tweaks together into something that maybe we get a final vote with. I think we could vote in right now and just say that that with some minor changes, we are to send this to the county, and then we'll send the final one out to everybody just to show them before it goes to the county manager.
And anybody who wants to be part of the drafting committee, your weekend is coming up, and we welcome you to join us. Anybody, many cooks, it makes an interesting meal. No, seriously, if anybody is very concerned about how it looks or what exactly it says, then please join us. And with that, I think I am going to go ahead and make move that we consider a vote on these CIP recommendations with the 5 or 6 tweaks that we have just discussed over the last half hour. So do others second my motion to bring this matter to a vote?
I'll second that.
All right. So, do we want to discuss more? I take that as a no. So we are going to vote on whether we support the CIP recommendations from the BAC and the PAC with the tweaks that we just discussed, knowing that anyone can help us fix this document over the coming days as desired. Those in favor say aye or write yes in the chat or do something.
Find the chat.
So I'm not really sure of our numbers and if we even have enough people present, but hopefully we do, and it looks like the ayes have it, assuming that our numbers are good enough. Jillian, is your hand still up?
No, I was just voting.
Okay. I still have to call for the nays. Thank you. So do we have nays? If you want to write that in the chat or say so, please speak up. And abstentions. Thank you, Megan. Those who wish to abstain.
If you had asked for no's instead of nays, at the end of the vote, you could have said the ayes are above the no's, as usual.
There we go. Thank you. All right. All right. So some of us will work on this document. If anyone wants to work on it too, you can write that in the chat, or you can send me an email, or write to Eric, or whatever you want. Thank you, everyone. This will be done in the coming days, we hope, and we will send it around. And now we're totally behind on our agenda, I'm sure, but let's see what we have next. Oh, just a small item, the the report of problem RAP system. How much time do we have? All right. So Elwin, take it away. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. I wanted this time to kind of have an open conversation because we talked about this at our last meeting with the PAC in December. Basically just hearing some things from folks about how the current reporter problem system is having issues, or maybe some folks feel as if their requests are being ignored, or maybe they've been like closed out without any kind of action. So this is, I don't really have any materials prepared for this, session. I just wanted to hear from folks about your experiences, things that are working, things that aren't working, and maybe we could circle around to see what's going on and find action to see who else can be brought in to see what can be done. Yeah, Julian.
Hey, thanks. So I have had a number of requests sort of go into a black hole, and these are easy. These are like potholes that really shouldn't take more than a month at the outside. And I put into the comments, any update on this, trying to be like nice and polite. If it's been more than a month, I've just started emailing people. If I know who the right person is, I'll just email them and saying it's just sitting there. But a lot of times I don't know who it is. Also, one issue I've had is that there's no way, once something is closed, there's no way to like add a comment or say anything. So for example, there was a pothole growing at a particular location on George Mason. That's where it's really dangerous because it's on the right where you would ride a bike. There are other potholes on George Mason, and I would report the really dangerous pothole and other potholes would get filled, and then my report would get closed. And there was no way to say, hey guys, thanks for putting some asphalt down, but you really have to look here. And like anyway, I tried everything. It doesn't work. It seems like it wasn't given to the same person again, so the same person could realize there was a mistake. Don't fill that pothole, fill this other one, or contact me if you really don't understand it. I think those are the most frustrating problems I've had. And then just so everyone on the BAC knows, you may remember a long time ago, for those who have been around, when the county came to talk to us about Fairfax Drive, when they were putting in the concrete bus bays, how we said, it's really dangerous to put concrete right beside asphalt in a bike lane because we know there will be potholes there. Potholes developed, I reported them. It took 3 months. And apparently it took 3 months because DES couldn't figure out whose job it was to fill the potholes. That to me is particularly frustrating because we very explicitly talked about the fact that potholes would develop in the design phase. And so in my mind, DES should have figured out who was going to be responsible for those potholes, when they were building it and dealing with any cross-jurisdictional issues. I believe that's all my report of problem frustration.
Yeah, I'm not sure when exactly the system was launched. Does anyone know how new the system is? Is it like a year old or so?
In and out of the district.
It's 4 or 5 years old.
About is
Okay.
a similar
Yeah.
amount of people coming and going, but so that is going to require a different set of transportation and transit investments. I'll show this.
See Steve's hands up.
This next slide here. These are the 4 categories that Kimberly Horn and the project team are looking at.
Leslie, you need to be on mute.
So I have the same problem where things just kind of disappear. I was just looking at one sort of request I put in. It was 4 months ago, and then it got closed, and then shortly after that it got reopened and said this was closed by mistake. But that was 3 months ago, and again, this is not like a challenging thing they have to construct. It's literally just cleaning off a sidewalk, and it still hasn't been done. So I just don't know how. There's just this sense that nobody's in charge, right? That there's just this system out there, and it's just a crapshoot whether or not something you put in there is ever seen, ever done anything about. It doesn't feel like a nice, crisp, system that works.
Dana.
Yeah, I guess the big question, who is the program manager in Arlington County for this?
Traffic, parking, things
who actually owns report a problem?
Yeah, from my understanding, I don't think there's anybody in charge of it. It's a system that was basically launched, and then depending on the request that's asked, basically gets like switched off. That's kind of like a switchboard. Maybe basically gets like sent over to a specific department, and then we kind of sift through to see whether it's something that we could be done in house, or if it's something that needs to be routed to someone else. But there's no man behind the curtain kind of thing at Wizard of Oz. It's kind of just, it's like a platform that we all use, kind of like a social media, I guess, for lack of a better term. If that makes any sense. Yes.
Do you have a flow chart or something of how it works?
Not on hand. But that's something I could probably prepare and bring to you guys for the next meeting, Matt. Maybe if you want to continue this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to resolve all these issues. We're just throwing them out there. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could tell you like from my experience, because I'm one of the people who responds to the request sometimes. So basically, we get the request from the citizen or whoever's reporting it. Sometimes it's a staff member who reports things to the system for tracking. Then if it's something that's related to like a blocked bike lane or blocked sidewalk or blocked roadway, then it winds up in my window, my email. And then that's when I review the request, because sometimes we'll see something that shouldn't be there, like if it's like a trash pickup request, or maybe it's like a fallen tree branch. So then I route that to a different department or whoever to take action. And then from there, it kind of goes like it goes to that department for their review. And then sometimes it'll bounce back and forth depending on the issue, because sometimes, like you mentioned, if it's unclear who's in charge of which program, or maybe if it's a road that belongs to VDOT, or maybe it's a park that belongs to the National Park Service, things like that. Then it's a matter of us trying to figure out who is in charge of what.
Okay, so basically nobody's in charge is what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's from my understanding.
Okay. How's at the risk of being a little cavalier, how's that working out for you? It's not working out for the customers.
Okay.
Because there's no way to make change. There's no way to implement changes to documented flaws.
Right, so Dana, about 2 months ago, I happened to run into Mark Schwartz at something, and he said he was leaving to go to a meeting about problems with report a problem tool and like staff not responding to it and whatnot. So I think the county knows it's not working.
Well, yeah, but unless they have a program manager, it's never going to get fixed. Mark Schwartz can't be the program manager.
No, I know. I'm just saying that I don't think it's actually news to them that it's, this. And I think we can give Elwin the feedback that we don't think it's working. And we can suggest to him that it, just like the 3 Cs process, which actually has worked pretty well once they put a system on top of it. It probably needs that kind of system on top of it.
Well, I sent Elwin a list of what I thought were kind of structural problems. I'll share them with the BAC as well.
Yeah, I think that these problems can't be unique to issues that concern us. I mean, these obviously are all around the place, and the fact that Jillian's pointed out that people know there's a problem with the system. I'm not sure how much more time we need to spend in our meeting on these kind of specifics. I mean, I can tell you we've had this same conversation in the past years ago, that the system was not working right. And so I don't know how hopeful we should be that it will be fixed or not, but if we have other items on the agenda, I might move, we just move along. Elwin's aware, a million different problems. Others are probably complaining as well. the county is either going to address it or they're not. And if they don't, in a few months, we can just come back and say you still haven't addressed it. But I don't think going into the nitty gritty of specific problems is probably going to give them any new information at this point.
Mike, what do you think?
No, I tend to agree. I mean, I was going to give a specific example, but I mean, a simple policy change. I mean, it's a huge systematic issue, but a simple policy change that said, when you close an issue, you have to type in a reason how it was resolved, what's going on, that goes back to the person. That's all. Because right now they just close. And you don't know whether it's, oh, we couldn't find that problem, we couldn't solve that problem, we think we solved the problem. We don't know. I reported the construction site at the Wendy's, the old Wendy's, which is across the street from the courthouse, which is consistently blocked. And then, it continues to be blocked, but 30 days later, the ticket was closed. So I don't know whether they were saying, I kind of expected to get a response that said, look, we're doing our best, but we can't do anything. It's a tight site, something to tell me that they weren't going to do anything about it, or that they tried, or that they think they solved it, one or the other, but it just nothing, just closed.
Yeah,
so that,
plus
to me,
a point of contact.
Yeah. Just a simple, hey, this is so-and-so from this department. Here's what we think happened here, and this is why I'm closing it. Boom. And that they shouldn't, you could set up the program where it wouldn't allow you to close it until you had something in there, but you could just make it a policy. Because I think every department probably deals with them differently, and there's no common responsibility.
I love that idea of having to note why it was closed. Because otherwise it's kind of a slap in the face. You take the time to uh, go through the system. It's not exactly intuitive. I mean, which category, take photos and whatever, and then like 2 days later, closed. And it's like, really? So if there were a note or something, that would be really nice. I mean, you'd feel like there's a human and you'd feel somewhat appreciated, maybe. Okay, and I see some more hands. Noreen.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up. I agree that, if there could be something built in to where they say, okay, we've closed the ticket, did this resolve your problem, yes or no? And then have it, so that you could have a mechanism for saying, well, no, you didn't fill the pothole that I had in mind or whatever. And another thing is I haven't used it in a couple of months, but most of the time when I use it, I have a hard time picking something out of the drop-down menu. The drop-down menu really needs to be better. So I think sometimes I put things, you just kind of throw a dart at the dartboard to try to pick some least terrible choice on the drop-down menu, and you're probably not picking the right one. Anyhow, that's all I had. Thanks, though, for taking our input.
Thank you, Noreen. And I agree on the drop-down options. I struggle sometimes, like which one to pick. Eric.
Yeah, I think for the most part, when they're closing the ticket, they're just acknowledging that they're passing it on to someone else. And then once it gets passed on to someone else, there's no process to actually get back to the original person that put in the ticket. And that's unfortunate. That's I think why we see so many tickets that just say they're closed.
So maybe we can just consider this as sort of an initial conversation. There's obviously, I mean, this is not a simple thing to fix, but these are all good thoughts. And Elwyn, whatever you're able to find in terms of like a flow chart or um, tracking like indicators, numbers, like how many people write in? Is it just us, or I mean, how many problems do people report? And if you have data on like how long they take to close, um, or how many of them are called closed in the first couple days or whatever. Like whatever information you have, we'll take it and we can go from there. And I see you're putting in up a dashboard, so I should look at that.
Yeah, I haven't explored this too much, but this is something that's on the reporter problem website. I guess this is a way for us to track how many are like, things are outstanding, but how many things are where the things are being reported. So I guess if we could play around with this, we could figure out like, what's going on in terms of how many requests are associated with block sidewalks, or how many folks are reporting like trash on the sidewalk, things like that. Yeah, I haven't explored this too much in detail, so I'm not sure how useful this is, but it's out there. It's on the website.
Yeah, I was looking at this a few minutes ago, and maybe I don't know how to use it either, but I can't even find the actual request. It's a category color map. It's basically data for the sake of data. But you click on something and that hey, I know there's a problem here. You click on it, it's like missed trash collection or some category, but there's no notes, there's no photo, anything in there. So I don't think it's very useful. It's
The other
metadata,
thing
it's
is,
not data.
yeah, there was a time in which you could figure out how long the average report a problem was taking to close. Because, why do you want data about report a problem, right? One of them might be the kinds of problems people are seeing and reporting, which that dashboard can show. But another is, how long does it take to actually address the problems? And are the problems actually addressed successfully? And that dashboard shows neither. The first, you should be able to know from your system. In fact, the county used to report it. And then the second, you probably don't know because you don't ask. And I was just looking at some of my, past reports. I'm looking at one where someone says a street is too narrow for what I asked. And I'm like, well, I have a question about that. If you went out there and measured the street, where is it too narrow? I actually don't think it's anywhere, but I don't have anyone to follow up with because there's no contact information. It's just closed. And so there's nothing to do now. So yeah, that could be helpful.
Yeah, do you mean like something like kind of like a case tracking thing that sometimes people do for like police reports? Like if like you submit a request and then you'll get heard back from the county or the state or whatever saying like, hey, like this person has been assigned to your request.
Yeah, I mean, or just when you close it, sign off with contact information. Like, do you have a problem with this? Contact here. And you could I don't know your software, but it seems like you could easily add a box that says, did this address your problem? Yes, no. And then you would know. Like, at the very least, you would collect the data as to whether the problem's been addressed. But right now, it kind of looks like Arlington doesn't want to know. And I don't think that's true. I think that the people who work in Arlington would actually you collect the request, you do something about them. Like, I don't think I don't want to be spitting in the wind and typing these up. And I don't think staff wants to be spitting in the wind either. So
actually, I used to get emails that say, how was your thing addressed in 1 to 5 stars? And it wasn't done. I clicked on the 1 star and it took me to the request that was closed and allowed me to add a comment to it, which was then never read by anyone because the thing was closed.
Yeah, and from my end, like on the other side, sometimes like we'll close a ticket out, but then we don't know what happens next. Like, for example, if someone parks a scooter that's blocking, a handicap entrance, uh, then report to the scooter operator. What happens next? We don't really hear about that from the scooter operators or from the residents. So it's kind of like mystery on both sides kind of thing.
Right. So you can't close tickets until the issue is addressed. You don't close a ticket when you slough it off on somebody else. That's not closed. You have not solved the problem. Right. That's the first issue, is tickets remain open until the actual thing has been addressed, not when it's sloughed off on somebody else.
So I was looking at my requests. I have 2 requests that are 2 and 3 months old that no one's responded to at all. And I don't know who in the county, like, there's no obvious person for me to follow up with. Is there a person I could send this? Because my default is to send it to like Way or even Greg Emanuel, but that seems dumb. Like, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. I just want the stuff fixed. Is there someone I can write about this, or do I have to write Greg Emanuel?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would send it to me, but that's going to probably open up a flood of requests coming in my mailbox. Not to say that I don't want to help you. I'm just saying, like, the whole point of the system was to make it easier for citizens to request things. But then, like, if it's not actually doing that, then what's the next step? What are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. Like, we need a like follow up button somewhere. Thank you. But thank you for having this conversation and passing the feedback along.
Yeah, for sure. I wish I could do more. But hopefully this is just the tip of the iceberg for the next stage for see what we could do next.
Yeah, we're not going to solve this one tonight. We knew we would not. But good start. And while you're in the hot seat, Elwin, do you want to talk about the Custis Trail?
Yeah, this one's pretty quick. I wouldn't say this is a hot seat issue. This is actually something I'm really passionate about. I'm really excited for the study. Yeah, I brought this up at the last meeting, but we had to condense it because we had a pretty stacked agenda last meeting. But I just want to remind everyone that we're kicking off community engagement this month for the Custis, probably with like a mapping tool for people to comment on over a few weeks. I love the idea of doing like pop-up engagements on the trail. But given that this is kind of a low ridership month due to the weather, I want to see if it's better use to maybe you could do a group ride, because I forgot who mentioned it at the last meeting. It might have been Mike, but that's something that I really love to do, and just to hear from your experiences, like on the ground in person, seeing these issues. I've been on the trail up and down a few times, walking and biking. But I want to hear what the people in the community have experienced for years, and a lot of these changes are long overdue. Yeah, like I guess is there a preference on when a group ride would be on the table? Would you guys want to do it, or if you're okay with the cold weather? Like, I don't mind. I have all the gear as well. I have my gloves and everything. Maybe we can schedule it maybe this month or next month.
So I had a question. Are we talking about basics maintenance stuff, like all of the root heaves, the fact that the undulations are coming back, the fact that all the damage from storms last summer was never fixed? Or are we talking about more fundamental design issues about it being too narrow and having drop-offs and whatnot?
Yeah, basically everything's on the table. The purpose of the study is basically to come up with like a list of recommendations. So no recommendations is too small or too big. So if it's just like root undulations, or even if it's things that the trail's narrow, or maybe if you feel like a sound wall should be placed between the highway and the trail instead of behind the trail. And there's no small recommendation or no too big recommendation. So we want to hear everything.
But why isn't the basic maintenance not being done? Like, why do we need to do a study to figure out that, like, where the trees, crash through the sound wall and the fence, and there's fence parts that are leaning into the trail and scary looking broken wall parts in the trail? Like, why do we need a study to know that those should be fixed?
Yeah,
Yeah, the
well,
study.
my sense is that from the way Ellen talked about before, those aren't really what the study is about.
Okay.
Yes, Jillian, those should get done, but the study is more of a comprehensive look at how to make the trail better, you know, in totality. Yeah, and one of those things might be ongoing maintenance, but I think, yeah, just like getting the tree out of the way, they should be doing that long before this study gets completed.
But when are they going to fix the things that were damaged in the storm? Like so trees fell across the trail. They got the tree out of the trail, but the tree's damaged, railings on both sides of the trail that haven't been touched. And there's like pieces of trees that are kind of sticking into the tree. I mean, there's like basic stuff that sort of looked like, at first I thought, okay, you got the emergency thing done. Now you're going to come back and fix it. When are they going to come back and fix it? Do they have a plan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Parks and Rec department, but yeah, these things like that, like damaged sand walls from trees falling onto the trail, things like potholes, like those are immediate needs. Those should be considered as part of like ongoing trail maintenance, and that's something that is always occurring. This study is more in terms of like figuring out like long-term things that need to be resolved. Like there's some parts of the trail that are as narrow as like 8 feet wide. They don't meet the basic 10-foot standard and things like that.
Okay, but so what do we? Speaking of reporting problem, I have reported problem from the summer from this. Like, who do we talk to about just? I mean, put it this way: as a volunteer, I'm loath to spend my time on these bigger issues when the really basic issues aren't being addressed. Like, what good is a study going to do if they don't even have the money to fill the potholes, to fix the undulation, like to do the basic stuff? Is this just going to be a study to put something on paper and not actually get done, or?
Your expertise in financial issues is much greater than mine, Jillian, but my sense is that the pots of money are really different. And I mean, the funding sources for maintenance are not necessarily the same ones that are for the big projects. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. It's not my area.
But the Custis Trail isn't even on the last CIP. Like, it's not there. You're right. There's no money to do this. And I don't think it's anybody's priority. Like, yeah, I would, and my kids take it to go to school. So it's a very real issue for me, but of all of the issues, it's very low on the list. So, I would love to do a ride and do a study and catalog ways to make biking safer, but like, let's start with an north-south route that can get people through the county. Like that would be a higher priority than the Custis Trail. And I don't understand where this is coming from and like why this has risen to the top of getting a study.
Yeah, those are really good points, and I'm always down for a group ride regardless of where it is, not just on the trails. I'm always down. I'm a pretty confident rider, so I can ride in the streets with you guys. But in terms with regards to your question, why are we doing this study? It's more so of like the trail was built 40 years ago, and it does look like in some places that it still looks like it was built in the 80s. So it's a long overdue to fix things. So basically, the study is in partnership with the state, with VDOT, and with the Office of Intermodal Planning. So basically, it's a partnership to figure out how, amongst our different agencies, how we could best tackle these issues. Because there's some things that the county's on the hook for in terms of maintenance, even though this is owned technically by VDOT. And there's some things that VDOT is on the hook for in terms of like things like sound walls, things like that. So this study is, you know, in terms of fixing things that have been long overdue in terms of need, but it's also our way of getting all the agencies together at the table to figure out a way forward.
Okay, I mean, that is helpful.
But I understand your frustration. I agree.
Yeah, thanks.
Noreen and then Randy.
Well, I think you kind of just addressed what I was going to bring up. I was going to ask what's, because I thought VDOT owned the Custis Trail as being part of I-66. So I was just wondering kind of what's Arlington's role here, or how much do we have control over or not, and what is the likelihood that VDOT is going to want to partner with us on this? I mean, it sounds good, certainly, but I don't know. And who besides VDOT? Is it Arlington VDOT, and are there any other agencies that have any kind of role in the Custis Trail?
Yeah, there's this organization called a state agency called the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment. They're kind of like the transportation planning for the whole state. So they kind of help dictate where financing goes. And they also help in terms of prioritizing how improvements to the Custis Trail, for example, compared to other regional and statewide needs.
Okay. Okay, so that's another statewide agency. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I was just curious about how all this works with VDOT. Okay, that's all I had.
Are you going to cover the part where it's both the Custis Trail and the WNOD? And if so, do you have Nova Parks?
No, the study limits are basically from the intersection with the WNOD all the way to the Mount Vernon Trailhead near the Key Bridge.
Okay. It might, I'm seeing now that it might be Virginia thinking about, because Virginia does have a pot of money for trails. And if they're thinking of spending some of that money on the Custis Trail, the place where we need it most, well, the two places we need it most are the intersection of Doom, Lee and Langston, and then the connection to East Falls Church, which technically is the Custis Trail. You know, that's a lot of us have called for a bridge so that what is the WNOD / Custis Trail that goes along 66, just instead of going through the neighborhood and connecting through Banneker Park, goes on a bridge over Sycamore Street and over the ramp to then reconnect with the WNOD / Custis Trail. So anyway, it's a strategic question, but if VDOT might have money to spend here, you know, those two places are good to spend it. The first one, though, the intersection of Doom, I think you have to have NPS at the table as well. So on the eastern side, you have to have an NPS at the table. On the western side, you have to have Nova Parks at the table.
Randy.
I don't think there should be any doubt in anybody's mind that the study is needed. It has been needed for 40 years. The trail was designed poorly from the very outset by VDOT. They never asked anybody in Arlington about it. They put a trail there that is, by current standards, just atrocious. And so, Jillian, I don't think there's any question about the fact that this study is needed. Your problem about lack of maintenance is because the county in the operating budget has $250,000 a year for trail maintenance. And 10 to 15% of that is used for graffiti removal and there is only one staffer. So that pretty much answers your question about why aren't things getting done. There's no money, there are no people. We got to do something about that if you want to have more maintenance actually done on the trail. But the study that Elvin is doing, I think, is long overdue, is desperately needed, and we will probably find 100 things along that trail that need to be improved.
As I said, I don't doubt that it will find things. It's just not the top priority. But if you have for Arlington's money, if you have a pot of money that's not Arlington's money, then awesome, great.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add to that, thank you, Randy. Basically, this is kind of like a free study for us. We applied for a technical assistance grant through the state, which we received. So this is kind of like a free study that's not being funded by the county. So even though we're at the table, I'm the project manager of the study. We have a consultant on board. There's no county money that's going to the study. It's basically just creating a list of recommendations, which could be funded by the county or by the state. So it's kind of just up in the air.
Steve.
Yeah, back to the problem with where the trail damage has happened, and this has happened in the past where we had the floods from a few years ago and it took out some bridges. And if a tree falls on my house, right, then I get in touch with my insurance company and it gets fixed because I don't probably have the money in my pocket. Now I realize that the county self-insures, but it needs to treat those kinds of damages not as its regular maintenance budget. Those are like insurable losses, and it needs to come out of some sort of county insurance damage fund, not out of just the regular trail maintenance fund. That's for regular snow plowing and keeping stuff clear. But when you have that kind of damage that's caused by an act of God or storm or whatever you want to call it, that's an insured loss. That's not just maintenance, and it has to be treated differently.
Aaron.
So I'm up for a group ride. I think that's the original purpose of this conversation, is to say, hey, can we get out there and point out a few things? I mean, I think we're going to find 500 spots where the same issues come around. So you might just say trail width, safety on the margins, maintenance issues is straightening out the curves, widening things, new sound walls and stuff. But I think being out there in a group is good. So yeah, let's do it, Ellen.
I agree,
Yeah, sure.
and I suggest we combine it with a group coffee.
Perfect. But not tomorrow. It's going to rain tomorrow.
Okay.
And were you guys, anybody on the trail today? Because I was on there and just past Scott Street where the sewer goes underground. There was a lot of water, and I don't know if that was sewage coming out of the pipe or just rainwater leaking out of the hillside. Anybody?
I don't think that pipe is sewage. I think that pipe is diverting stormwater.
No, I think that's sewage.
It's part of a stormwater diversion program, like project.
I hope so. All right.
Did you ride right through it?
I rolled right through it.
Yeah.
Take a shower.
Hope you had thunders. Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys have a preferred approach for like scheduling meetings beyond the BAC monthly meetings. If there's like a doodle poll or something, if determine preferences for like time and day or whatever.
We could either do.
I suggest you just do that, Elwood. I mean, you have the BAC group list. Go ahead and set up a doodle poll and invite us.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, unless it's like Martin Luther King Day or some day that people aren't working, it would probably have to be a weekend or wait till it's sunnier out later.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll sign something up. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, I suggest we push off the work plan. We know what we got to do anyways, but we are keeping track of a lot of different issues, and we have a long list, as Ellen painfully knows, of issues that we hope to dive into and bring staff to our meetings. So why don't we jump ahead and talk about any BAC business? Ellen, did you want to mention the VDOT situation or anything else?
Yeah, VDOT, they revised their schedule a few months ago. So now they're anticipating that the draft document for the study will be shared with us at the start of next month. So we've been told that the first week of February. So as
Now,
soon as we,
have you heard that? Because Pam we were chatting last night and she was suggesting we may not see anything until April. Did VDOT say something, or I was just looking at their website?
yeah, it seems to be like we're playing a game of telephone. So like I've heard from someone else. I've heard from Allison, which is our manager. And I'll post this link that I found that shows the draft report is coming February 2024. And this is last updated in December, so.
So we have been trying every month to get VDOT to this meeting, and hopefully next month, and if not next month, the next one after, we'll get VDOT to come and we'll do another backpack meeting. Because it will be interesting to see their phase 2 study and their speed study as well. And then did you also have an update on Shirlington Road on the study, if that's beginning soon or underway?
Yeah, it's currently underway. It was launched, I believe, in November. So basically, it's looking at a long-term solution. So I think you mentioned it earlier. We're looking at options for maybe going under the bridge or over. Basically, just finding ways to create a cohesive, never non-ending connection. So people driving cars or people riding bikes or walking aren't in conflict with each other. So it's going to be an above grade or below grade crossing, basically. But given how much it'll probably cost, it necessitates a study to basically determine which alternative makes the most sense. And I'm not sure when the study will be complete, but it's an internal study that's being done not just within DES, but with their stakeholders in stormwater and other departments.
So it's being done by engineers who work for the county who are trying to assess like the technical capacity and the costs of going up or down.
Right, it's tricky because of the stream that's right next to it. You know, there's some concern that if we go below the bridge, that it could be flooded. But that's, I mean, it's an important crossing that needs to be done regardless. So yeah, it's being handled with engineering staff in house basically.
Okay. Great. Who else has items in our last 3 whole minutes? Any more updates?
If no one has anything, on January 24th, at the Bozeman Government Center at 2100 Clarendon Boulevard, we're going to be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Art Bus. So if anyone's available and wants to get excited for buses, I'll be there. Definitely, the 25th anniversary. It's a big milestone for the county.
Another thing I can quickly add, we're having our second MLK Day trail cleanup on Monday from 10 to 1. And we will be on the WNOD trail again at Columbia Pike and South 4 Mile Run Drive. So if anybody wants to join us, you can come for an hour or so and we'll have all the supplies. And it was a great day last year. So you're all welcome. We'd love to have you.
Wonderful.
If for those of you interested in Virginia policy, the legislative session is starting. It's been quite a wild ride because in the House, the person who probably is going to be elected speaker, or maybe was today, I keep losing track, would not announce ahead of time committee assignments. So we have no idea what the committee situation looks like. It's very, very last minute. We also don't know what the schedule is going to look like. And we literally could find out tomorrow or Wednesday that something's being heard on Thursday. But if you want to get involved and help, make calls, write emails to support, there's lots of things being introduced, including e-bike incentives and an omnibus safety bill to fix little things like riding two abreast and lots of things. Happy to talk in more detail, but definitely let me know if you're interested and or sign up with either the Virginia Bicycling Federation or WABA. WABA is also engaged and involved, and we'll push out emails to people in the right district with instructions on what to do. So please stay involved. And then Elwyn, speaking of art, the Arlington art truck, as in painting art, has been parked, partially blocking the bike lane on George Mason. And if you could help, I've tried calling, I've tried tweeting at them. There's no email address. If you could help to get them to park correctly, that'd be.
Yeah, is it like a daily issue?
Oh, it's just sitting there. I don't know why they don't store it anywhere else, but they store it on George Mason, and instead of parking it in the parking space, they park it in like the buffer for the bike lane, and then they
It's been
moved it when the house exploded.
more than a year that's been that way.
Really?
Yeah, well, they moved it when the house exploded, and then they put in bollards, which was great, and then they put it back exactly where it was. So I don't know why they park it there. It's a dumb place to park it, but they can't, it's parked illegally, and it's clearly an Arlington truck. And so anyway, if you could help, thank you.
Yeah, that's news to me. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. It's unfortunate that, yeah, I love the art bus. It's a shame that it's blocking bike lanes.
Yeah, it's the art truck. It's the AED runs it. It's like the cultural fair. It's like painting art. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'll take a look.
And just one clarification, that's it. That's on George Mason at what cross street?
Just north of Wilson,
Okay.
in the blast zone.
Ah, okay. All right. Well, it's 9:02. Thank you, everybody, for taking the extra couple of minutes. And we will be in touch on the timing for a Custis Trail ride. And also, we will be working on a final version of the CIP letter to Mr. Schwartz. So lots of emails to come. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Have a good night.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.